Starting off here in the United States, botched up executions of death row convicts are making headlines in the U.S. Findings of the U.S. death penalty information center says that a shocking 1 in 3 executions carried out in the U.S. in 2022 turned out botched up and a bloody mess. And big problems with the 40-year-old lethal injection method has come out. Of 20 executions carried out in the U.S. this year, 7 were ugly failures. That's a problem rate of around 35%. 6 states executed criminals. In at least 3 of them, the procedures went haywire at multiple stages. In the first case in Alabama, executioners struggled for 3 hours to set an IV line. The other 2 executions were called off because the execution team could not find a workable vein before the death warrant expired. Also in Arizona, executioners tried to set the IV for 25 minutes. They then cut into the prisoner's private parts to find a vein to carry out the execution. Reports called it a bloody mess. Witnesses say that the execution team had to, quote, wipe up a fair amount of blood. During another execution in Arizona, the prisoner advised the IV team on how to find a vein in his body. Lawyers have described the drawn-out attempt to find a vein as a form of torture. Now remember, the lethal injection system of execution is supposed to be a painless death penalty. Injections are used to avoid unnecessary cruelty to inmates. Of the people executed this year, several came from vulnerable groups. 8 of them suffered from a serious mental illness. 5 were intellectually disabled. Executions and new death sentences have been going down in the U.S. this week. Oregon Governor Kate Brown commuted the sentence of 17 death row inmates. Their sentencing were changed to life imprisonment without parole, and even as the number of executions decreased, more problems with the system are being uncovered. Okay, we are joined by our guest this hour for more on this really troubling report. Thank you so much for joining us. How is this that executions right now have become so controversial in the United States? Okay, we are joined by Mr. Colin Sumner. Thank you so much for joining us. How is it that executions have become so controversial in the U.S. as of late?
Well, it's Professor Colin Sumner. I've been in criminology for 40, 50 years, depending on how you count. I don't know. I'm a retired professor in the UK. I would imagine that the reason is because there's a declining belief in the civilized value of capital punishments in the US. Clearly, several states have stopped doing it.
And Professor, on a global scale, do you think that capital punishment and executions are something that we need to be looking more into moving into the future?
Well, I can't speak for the whole planet. We abolished capital punishment in Britain in 1969 in the end, although initially in 1965 and finally in 1998. For treason. So obviously many different countries have different attitudes, different cultural philosophies about it. It's hard to generalize in that way. I mean, in this country, we don't approve of capital punishment because, well, there are too many miscarriages of justice, basically.
Professor, thank you so much for joining us on WION.